Winston stopped writing, partly because he was suffering from cramp. He did not know what had made him pour out this stream of rubbish.
I guess as you're not on screen, it's just going to be my big fat head anyway.
Beautiful. Well, that's why the ladies show up all the time.
It is. All three of them. Okay. Welcome to Generation Y. We have a special one today for you. In my opinion, the greatest creator of anything ever, even than God. We have Devon Tracey. Hello, Devon.
I've heard a lot of intros in my day. I've never heard one quite like that. And let me back away from it and say, I don't like to be referred to as a god. I prefer demigod, but those are my pronouns. Yeah.
And Lord.
And Savior, potentially.
Oh,
Thank you. I appreciate
I didn't even think of that.
The glowing praise. You know, I don't believe in gods, but I field it with humility and with great ego. So thank you.
Okay, so I have been a huge fan of you since probably 2013, 14, like we were saying before.
What timeout? Are we talking about huge as in you are huge and a fan? Because we just went over that you're tall and girthy.
Girthy. Oh, Jesus. Okay, help me. I'm going to say all three.
Okay.
All three facets of huge.
You're a huge fan. Got it.
I am. I'm a huge fan. And anyway. So, yeah, I just wondered if you could tell me how you started on YouTube, what year, and sort of what made you get involved.
Oh, man. The years kind of blend together, and I'm not really quite sure. I think it might have been 2012. Jesus Christ, that sounds like a long time now.
It's
maybe
crazy,
not.
isn't it?
No, it can't be. Well, maybe it was. 13?
I think it was.
Yeah, it's wild, but I remember where I was, because the years don't really matter to me as much anymore. Like when you're in high school and college, it's like you know exactly where you were in time and space every year. But then after that, it's just a free for all. At least for me, it has been. But I remember I was in Korea and I made a video, and I would make stuff and just show it to my girlfriend, and I would post on Facebook, and I'd post like long rants, and that was my outlet. But I made a video and I wanted to show the video, and I heard about this, website called YouTube, and I posted up the video with the intention of posting up one video. And the video was called Atheism is Unstoppable because it was a reaction to a movie trailer called Unstoppable. And I was making fun of the trailer. I didn't speak on it or anything. I just sort of, added some text and was messing around a bit. And you have to name your channel. So I was like, oh, I'll just put in Atheism is Unstoppable because that's what I'm going to call the video. And then several thousand videos later, several millions of views, around 100 million views, I'm still making videos every day. Like I'm making one right now as we talk.
And how long did it take you? Do you remember how many videos or how many months or years before you thought, I've got something good here?
Well, it was a hobby. Like it was just something I did for fun. It was never any intention to make money off it at all. I remember, I had a viral video, like my fourth or fifth. I made this video for Sam Harris, and it got spread around, and it got several 100,000 views, which at the time for me, I thought it was like Da Vinci at that point. I thought, or DiCaprio. I mean, I thought I was like a famous hotshot type of dude. But you realize that the views are just a number and it's whatever. And really, that was just Sam Harris talking. People came for Sam Harris. I did a good job editing, but it got me excited. And I thought, wow, I should probably take advantage of the internet and engage with it, because as a creative person, and I've always been an artistic, creative person, I have things to say. I have an intellectual side of my mind and then the artistic side. This was the dilemma I had in college, what to major in. And I had to choose, and I ended up choosing animation and history because I don't want to just be one thing. I want to be all things. But if you are a creative person and you're coming out of college and it's like, oh, by the way, there's the internet now. It's just an explosion of opportunity for you. And it's an obvious choice. I mean, you have to dive into the internet if you're coming out of college at the turn of the century. And I did. And I became a web designer and got into advertising, did animation, Flash animation, did, built these interactive sites and coding, and then just advertising and motion graphics and video came later. And then the opportunity of YouTube, which, wasn't around for most of the dawn of the internet. It's only really got going later. Now it feels like an institution. But
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, and then I got into that and I just entered into the fray and sort of creating. But oh yeah, it had been years. I think I had like 25, 30,000 subs before I even thought maybe I should ask people for money, which was a very weird thing to be like, hey, give me money.
I
You know,
remember
it,
that.
it's not something that one typically does. Nowadays, you'll have people with 5 subs, they got a Patreon.
Yeah.
They're selling merch. And I'm like, well, really? Okay.
Speaking of which, merch in the no, I'm just joking. So okay. I know a little bit about this, but tell me slash the other 3 people watching how your sort of family background, where you grew up, where your parents, and I mean not everyone, but yeah, just a rough background of you.
Well, the short version is I'm a guy from LA. I was born in LA. No, I wasn't born in LA. What am I talking about? Born in New York, raised in LA my whole life. So like at 1 years old, we came to LA. Slightly more involved version of that would be I'm from Pacific Palisades, which is a very affluent. It's one of the best neighborhoods in the world, really. I mean, it's the best place you could be in LA, in my opinion. And it's filled with celebrities and pro basketball players and the richest of the rich. It's where Sam Harris lives, put it that way. It's very tranquil and it's close enough to a big city, but it's by the beach and you know it's incredible. My dad made a really good choice going there. But my family is from South Africa. My dad was born in South Africa. My middle name is in Zulu. They are not South African per se. I mean, they are citizens, but they are English. They're not lost. That's not lost on them. They're English people in South Africa. And, my grandfather moved down there, Hugh Tracey, who's a famous man, musicologist, studied African music, documented it, went out and recorded it all throughout the, 20s, 30s. I mean, he was doing that for the first time in history, which was quite incredible. But before that, my family's been from England for 1,000 years and the southwest of England, which is how I got my name, Devon. And the Traceys of England are well documented, and we have historians in the family. And yeah, I'm quite proud of my heritage.
Good man. Yeah, I remember hearing a lot about your grandfather. And is it your middle name or your father's middle name is like Zambezi or Zulu or something?
Yeah, it is. It is in Zulu. My father's middle names are Hugh. No, yeah, Hugh Lawrence. So very British, but he wanted to give me a little bit of the African side of things because it means something to him, and like he considered living there with the family. I mean, his brother does, and I'm glad he didn't. But yeah, he just threw in Kunjani as my middle name, means how are you? And growing up in LA in the 80s, I was like, that's cringe. I don't want to be different. Like, what is this? Got some Zulu African name? Like, come on. I would like to hide from that. But the older I got, the more I realized you are who you are and you got to embrace reality. And it's not a problem to be different. It's actually fine. It's to be desired.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so obviously your grandfather and your father. Was your father involved in music as well? He
Oh,
was,
yes.
wasn't
His whole
he? Yeah.
life. Yeah, he's a musical theater guy. I mean, that's how he got out of Africa is him and his brother started a musical, like a Broadway musical
Yes.
style thing.
I remember
They
that now.
got sketch comedy, folklore, or folk music actually. And yeah, it was a nice blend and the world hadn't seen it before. Today it would be seen as, oh my God, it's terrible. You got white people representing South Africa, but they are truly African. I mean, they love the
Yeah.
culture. They are the culture. That's what people don't understand. I mean, my uncle, my father, my grandfather, they completely dedicated their life to African music and partook in it. They didn't just study it; they are it. And they took that musical. They traveled the world with it. Went to Broadway, London, all around the world. And he used the money from that to buy the house in LA. And
Mm.
yeah.
It's an interesting one, because what you're saying about your father and grandfather having, feeling a lot of connection to Africa, and you saying that people would say that's very unfashionable now, which is true, which is fair. I'm not saying that's real, but that's what some people would think. But then at the same time, we, probably rightly, are, if you're in the West, but you're not originally from the West, and say you've only been here for 30 years, or you and your family have only been here for 10 years, then people would also say that it's terribly wrong of somebody to say that that person is probably not English or probably not American. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a hypocrisy because, some white people have been in South Africa for what, 450 years?
Oh yeah, it's not even, and
Yeah.
also
So at what point are you allowed to be? Yeah.
exactly. I've seen this happen. Hypocrisy is interesting because I'm not sure people are aware that being hypocritical is wrong or bad.
Right. I know.
Like, because it happens so much and people give a pass to it so much that I think you would really need to reset and hammer down the point as to why this exposes you as having not just a bad character, no character. I mean, everything you say has no credibility anymore. You're a joke. And you're right. I mean, people celebrate diversity and they celebrate, oh, it's the fabric of different groups of people living together and we're all equally American. And you're like, okay, so you think that about the whites in South Africa, right? Or Namibia. I'm doing a video on Namibia. You got Germans down there who went down there 100 years ago and they're still there. And, they were born in Namibia. They are Namibian. Their parents, their grandparents, like they've been there for a long time, but they still get shit on. And people still view their presence in Namibia as illegitimate. And they're sitting there going, screw you.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
I
all I
am
know.
where I am. I mean, look at Americans. I mean, America hasn't been around that long, really. And who are these Americans? They'll still bitch about, oh, you're living on stolen land and you committed a genocide and you have no right to be here. And, people are trying to tell white people in America to get out, to go home, go back to Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. And so the people in Namibia that are being somewhat bigoted towards the Germans, is that to do with the color of their skin or perhaps their choice in sport?
Yes, obviously, look, the color of the skin is the quick and dirty way, and it's just pure raw racism. That's what it is towards white
Wait, wait,
people.
wait, wait. I thought, but you can't, you can't be racist if
Right.
you're not white.
This is a avant-garde position to take where you're actually against racism. If you call people's bluff and you say, okay, you're against racism, great. It's a nice bumper sticker. It's a nice Hallmark card. But are you actually against racism? Because it's
Yeah.
obviously happening all around you and you're partaking in it on a daily basis. And you apparently don't seem to notice that, which leads us back to the hypocrisy. These people, they are the things they claim to hate. And it's very awkward, but it's
Mm.
entertaining to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a car crash, but it can't be good for, for mankind. I mean, the sort
Oh,
of sorry, go for it.
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I'll cut people off all the time, and I apologize for stepping on your toes.
No, it's
Um,
fine.
but the people in Namibia, what they're taking crap, and it just look. People will get blamed for stuff they have no business being blamed for. So if someone has a gripe with colonialism, period, like I don't think white people should be in Africa, they'll blame the guy born in 1985, who's like a farmer, you know, living his life. It has nothing to do with any of this. Like he's born into a situation. Now, I would take issue with their bitching about colonialism, but I'd also point out the fact that you're blaming a guy who has nothing to do with it. People do this all the time. They'll do this with Nazis or Germans,
Right.
and they'll say every Nazi is responsible for the Holocaust. That's implied in everything they say. You're a
Right.
Nazi. What?
Hmm.
Why does saying you're a Nazi mean anything? Okay, so what? I'm part of a political party that went to war. There's a million different wars, and there's many people in the military. What's your point? They'll say no, Nazi is bad because of the Holocaust. Well, I didn't that Nazi didn't do the Holocaust. Like, it's not a minor point that you're being blamed for something you didn't do. You did not plan. You had no power in that event, the Holocaust.
It's interesting. Sorry.
No. Please talk over me. It's fine. This is
no. It was interesting you say that, because Dan, the other chap on Generation Y here, he was saying yesterday how, you know, we still hunt down, and Jesus, it feels so bad, you know, because of society makes you feel bad for saying stuff like this, because it looks like you're defending worse things than you are. But Dan was saying that, you know, we're still hunting down people that, you know, they were like a guard at a POW camp and they fled to Argentina, and they're 98 now or something, and we're like proud that we've caught them after they've been on TV doing an interview saying how abhorrent it was.
Yeah, there's a movie about that. Ben Kingsley starred in it, and it's called Operation something. I've forgotten.
Oh,
Operation
yes,
Finale or something, maybe like that.
Yeah.
But he plays, I think, Hess. So one of the top guys in the high command of the Nazis, and he fled to Argentina, just like Oskar Schindler did. You know,
Yeah.
Oskar Schindler was a guy who had to get the fuck out of Germany, and you know, that's a whole separate thing, whether or not he should have gotten the hero treatment that he got, because that dude was highly suspect. I'm not going to say sus. I don't want to partake in that lingo, but the guy was a war profiteer. He was a womanizer. He definitely had self-interest in his mind, and the fact that he accidentally saved a bunch of Jews because he happened to have been using them for slave labor. I mean, they painted this guy like he was Mother Teresa, who, by the way, isn't even Mother Teresa, thanks to
dude
Hitchens.
That's crazy.
But like, he had to get the hell out to Argentina, and I've lived in Argentina. I love Argentina, and I'm sure there are still German people down there. There's a big Jewish community down there too, and yeah, it is fascinating though. But here's the greater point though: the things I'm talking about with the Nazis. Think of it. Why is that uncomfortable? Why, like you mentioned, like, oh, you can't really say certain things because there's only one thing to say about the Nazis, which is they're the personification of evil. Fuck them, fuck all of them, and that's it. It's over. To the point where the word Nazi is so toxic and powerful. And by the way, we're still living in the wake of World War II. This is the most significant event of our lifetimes, and we weren't even born. Now, calling someone a Nazi today still has a power to it. And people call people Nazis, and they're not even remotely Nazis at all. It's a disrespect to the historical event and that group of people and what they did. It's you're leeching off of that. It's so disingenuous and stupid. But the point is, yeah, I'm going to talk about Nazi stuff and defend the people that deserve to be defended. And I don't care if it's uncomfortable. And I don't care if you're going to be like, oh, you're a Nazi sympathizer. Of course I'm not. But I'm a person who lives in reality. So the second you're willing to enter an uncomfortable topic that is totally taboo, like religion, like race, you think I'm going to be freaked out about talking about, who to blame for the Holocaust and the fact that you shouldn't blame all the Nazis for the Holocaust? Of course not.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a childish thing, I think, to a degree. You know, when you've got people whose grandparents weren't even around in World War II and they're calling people Nazis.
Yeah, I mean look, it's not just about the Nazis. This is just a good thought experiment because it exposes people. People will freak and give you a knee-jerk reaction if you say anything that isn't just boo Nazis, right?
Yeah.
So, but you could apply this to anything else. You could apply it to America. So you'll get some rah patriot American types who are like, we're the good guys of World War II. And you could pop in and be like, but were you? Are you aware of what happened in Dresden or Tokyo? The decisions we made to kill women and children who were totally innocent civilians? Like, we committed all sorts of war crimes. And it's just a little bit more of an in-depth look at not just history, but any topic. And I think it's almost like a sport, exposing people's double standards and just holding up a mirror to them going, you're a clown. You don't even know what you're saying. You're either uninformed or you're too stupid to realize what a joke you are.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So obviously the name Atheism is Unstoppable. We've gone through that. I know that to you, atheism is just smash in your face logic. Like, why wouldn't you be an atheist?
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me a bit about your history. Like, were you ever religious? Like, was your family fairly religious or not?
No, I mean, no, I don't come from a religious family. I mean, my father was what he would probably describe as Church of England, which
Yeah,
for
CV.
anyone, right, which anyone in England knows, it's very mild. This is
Yeah.
like sort of, I mean, most churches in England now are, I mean, they're being rented out to do birthday parties and stuff. I mean, they're not really packing the aisles. And church and religion has had a slow death and different rates of speed across the world. But I think my father and myself, from much of my life, if asked what religion are you, would just say Christian,
Mm.
just because that's the socially acceptable answer. But we had no faith and we don't believe any of it. And it's just a matter of not stepping on toes and not, causing a stink basically growing up. You just don't want to be like, by the way, I don't believe in this. There's a time and
Yeah.
a place for that. And
Yeah.
society is drenched in religiosity and always has been.
Mm.
Our political leaders, every passing year that a US president ends a speech by saying, God bless America and God bless all of you or something like that, I cringe. And it really, I just raise an eyebrow. I'm like, are you serious? We're still doing that? But yeah, I'm not religious. No one's religious. I mean, it's crazy. The default position is I live in reality. And if you're going to come to me with some ancient Bronze Age stories and expect me to believe it, the onus is on you to convince me. And
Hmm.
good luck with that if you don't get your hooks into me when I'm a child, because then I can't be brainwashed as easily. And if I have a critical thinking mind, you're not going to convince a person, especially if their IQ is anywhere north of whatever.
So I imagine that you're not, though, the sort of person that really cares if like a friend or a family member is religious, obviously.
Um, no, because they won't be my friend. No, I'm just kidding. I don't care in the sense that it's not a deal breaker. It's just I think they're wrong,
Hmm.
and I probably, I'd say I'd lack a certain amount of respect for someone who could believe something so ludicrous. Um, I view it as a sign of weakness, to be honest. I mean, I look at it much the same way as I look at someone who smokes. Um, I have friends who smoke, but the act of them smoking is a sign of weakness. It's stupid, and it's self harm. And I would make the contention that religion and deluding yourself and not living in reality is also self harm. It's treating yourself with a lack of dignity, and it's just dishonorable, and it makes me kind of sick.
Mm.
So I don't want to waste my time chastising religious people or seeking them out and rubbing their face in the feces of their own stupidity. But like I just have better things to do. But yeah, if questioned about it, I would say you're ridiculous.
Uh, as a fundamentalist Islamic smoker, I concur. Um, but I'm really interested into what you think about my next question, which is, do you think, and I know you probably know where I'm going with this, and you're rolling your eyes already. Do you think the dwindling religion that we've seen in the Western world is leading to the complete shambles of society that we're seeing today? For
That's an
good, for right
easy,
or wrong,
yeah.
like whether it's right or wrong, do you think it's had any?
No, I think that's an easy analysis. I think maybe the culprit could just be the internet, which is not the internet like AI or something, but what the internet has given us in terms of the free flow of information. It's given voice to a lot of stupid people, and these stupid, angry people are influential,
Mm,
and they are dragging the global conversation in ways that is dangerous and backward. And I would also make the claim that no, it's not the loss of religion that is causing problems in society today. It's the rise of religion, a new religion called wokeism.
yeah, right, yeah.
And it's the
Yeah.
same things, you know, the parallels have been pointed out, and don't get lost in the fact that it's not a literal one to one comparison.
Yeah.
because the feelings are there, the mechanism at work that make the thing do what it does, be convincing, be tyrannical in how it forces people to obey. There's heresy in wokeism. All of that, it's an exact fit. And people have studied this, and people like John McWhorter have written books about it, and I fully agree with it. And so I'm not just against religion for the sake of religion. I'm against stupidity. I'm against dogma. And I'm against anything that I would view as backward and false. And so that's why it's such an easy thing for an atheist to go from criticizing religion to criticizing wokeism. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, I don't know, well, do you think that a lot of the people that we saw under the sort of cringy banner, was it Atheism Plus, are the very same people that we now see spreading the gospel of woke?
Oh yeah, I mean, they of course, these people suck, and it's just a matter of learning more about people. So if you want to get along with someone based off one common thing, like I used to play frisbee when I was living in Buenos Aires, and we'd play ultimate frisbee, and it was a bunch of expats and local Argentinians, and it was fun, and it was very light. No one talked religion or politics there, and basically we're all there to be social and to play frisbee. Now, if at any point I wanted to delve into, what's your take on Israel? What do you think about abortion? Where do you stand on the death penalty? Like anything remotely controversial, I would learn more about those people, and I might end up severing, half of those friendships based off more stuff I learned. So the fact that you're an atheist to an atheist, it meant something at the dawn of the new atheist movement, but shortly after, it became quite clear that these people suck balls just on 100 different levels. And it's like, okay, well, great, you're an atheist, kudos for that, but I think you're a total spaz on all these other things, and they're not insignificant things. These are deal-breaking issues that you're 1,000% wrong about. So we're just learning more about each other, and again, it's stupid people expressing their ideas online. People that don't deserve a microphone would never have gotten a microphone if not for the fact that it's all free and you can do whatever online. And it's basically a shit show. Here's what the adults don't want you to know, youngsters out there. No one was ready for the internet. No one knows where it was going to take us. No one knows the next platform that's going to blow up and take off and what the ramifications of that will be. And so what you're seeing is total chaos and people gripping and reacting and trying to roll with the punches. But if you zoom back, there is no guidance here. There's no guiding principle to how is the internet working with society? Can we have like a meeting about that? Forget the G8 or forget the Paris Climate Accord. Let's have a meeting about what the F is happening in our world based off the shenanigans going on the internet. We don't have the capacity to do that. It's not even on the table. We are deep inside of a tornado. And I mean, it's a little bit scary to acknowledge that, but that is what's happening.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, just 1% of it, just seeing what's going on at schools in the UK is just mind blowing. I mean, if somebody had told me the sorts of things that they actually teach as a lesson, if someone had told me this 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed them. And if they told me it 10 years ago, I would have thought they were insane and I would have just laughed it off.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, parody is dead. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we saw Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary. I don't know if you saw this, but she came out. They were doing like a transgender reinforcement forum or something, and she and Condoleezza Rice came out, and they literally walked up to the stage, and Jen Psaki goes, "Hi, my name is Jen, and my thingamajiggies are she,
Pronouns.
her, and them. Yeah, pronouns." And I was like, holy shit, this is it. Like, this is the moment where, like, we're done.
And you could walk it back and reverse engineer that. So why is Jen Psaki or whatever?
Jen Psaki, yeah.
Right? Why is she the press secretary? Well, because the optics are good because she's a woman. Because the Democrat in charge wants to put a woman up there. Now, Trump did the same thing, but he has his own reasons for using women the way he did. But
Mhm.
why is putting a woman out a virtue signal? I mean, she basically got gifted that job because of her gender. I mean, if
Mhm.
like that is a huge component as to why she got that job. Now let's look at this woman. She's a woman of a certain age. She's a woman with a certain timeline. She has her friends, her family. They put pressure on her. She is of this culture. So of course she's going to come out and say, here are my pronouns, because it fits in perfectly with where she lives and operates. Like that's just a common basic bitch thing to say for a woman her age and in her position. And so, yes, it is a sign of the times. It's like the canary in the coal mine is now
Yeah.
chirping about its pronouns, and you're going,
Yeah.
"What the fuck?"
Jesus Christ. God help us. I'm really interested in what your because your dad was obviously very similar to you.
He goes by he, him, by the way.
Okay, that's great. Um, what does he think of this? Because I assume that he was fairly into that initially. Obviously, I mean, what does he think of it? Does he know? Does he see it? Or
Yeah, I mean, he sees it. He's receptive to any argument I might make about a given point or a given hypocrisy. But he is from LA and he's surrounded by artists, and
oh Jesus,
his wife is, how can I put this? Very
insane?
liberal. Well, I
Oh, okay.
mean, yeah, like, we're talking about, God love her, but she is a yoga teacher and she has had a long history of, like I think she has a crusty Walter Mondale bumper sticker on her car. Like she never took that one off. So she buys into everything from white guilt to
Oh God.
crystals to, I'm sure they have the most basic position on trans stuff. But and he believes in a philosophy which is not to be dismissed, which is happy wife, happy life. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
you've
that's
learned the.
fair.
I mean, it's because you could take a stand and be like, actually, here's the issue I have with
Yeah.
a dude pulling his dick out in a women's bathroom, or you could have sex that night with your wife. Like those are your two
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, speaking of that, specific occasion, um, what happens there? Because that was kind of, a lot of people said a couple of years ago they will get to because a lot of African American families are, small c conservative. They also tend not to take shit, and they also tend to be quite expressive of their opinions. And so people were sort of saying a couple of years ago that it will get to a point where they start to encroach on people that won't take this shit. And like we saw that at the Wee Spa, where for those that don't know, a bearded gentleman that goes by she her went to the female massage lounge and flopped his twig and berries out next to a African American woman who then went to the counter to complain, where some extreme beta white boys basically apologized on behalf of no one, and they were just like, screw you. They can do what they want. They can do what they want. That's a woman. Just because they've got a penis, that's a woman.
Well, I love it. I have only heard about that story. I haven't read or seen the full video of that, but I understand the gist of what happened there. But it is
Mm-hmm.
amusing because really what it gets down to is this. It's
That's a
the
penis. That's a penis. Sorry.
Most people don't care about the trans issue in the way people think they care. It's
Yeah.
not about the trans people.
No.
It's not. Here's the basic take about trans people. You are your own person. You have freedom. You can do whatever you want with your life.
Yep.
Um, I wish you well. Like, I have my concerns. If you were a friend of mine, I'd probably tell you to seek counseling and to definitely have a long waiting period before you make any rash decisions. But
Yeah.
if you're convinced, who am I to tell you how to live your life? Go for it. If you're not harming someone else,
I
or
agree.
even if I grant you might be harming yourself, but you still have the right to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna, people have issues about drugs, but they want to legalize drugs. And if you want to use drugs, you can. I would, again, recommend against it, and you should probably seek counseling. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not against the idea that some people might be happier if they trans. I mean, it's the same thing with gays. It's the exact same thing. I don't care if you're gay. No one cares.
No.
We don't care if you're trans. Just do whatever. People have issues, when you bring the shit to children,
Yeah.
because and try to influence them and try to normalize whatever you're going to do, in the same way that a guy who's like, you know, if you're Bill Maher and he's a lifelong pot smoker, he smokes pot every day. I don't smoke pot. I recognize that other people can choose to do that if they want. I drink alcohol from time to time. I mean, so it's like, okay, different people, whatever. But if Bill Maher tried to say, you know what, kids, I think you should smoke pot, I would have the same issue with that. Now, are you going to call me a pot-phobe or a marijuana-phobe? Like, no. It's just, the problem is, the second you try to tell me what is real, and it spits in the face of what is real, then that's where the issue is. Like, if a preacher says, you know, we had that earthquake because there are gays sodomizing each other, and that's God punishing us. Like, okay, that's not real. How dare you try to push that lie onto me? If you try to tell me that a man is a woman, that's not real. Now that, you know, that's the issue, is I am against you bullshitting me. I'm choosing to live a life where I do not delude myself, and I will not have you attempt to push your delusion onto me. So that's not a minor issue. It's not about the trans shit. It's not about the cause of the earthquake. It's not about any of that. It's about power and bending the knee to people who are crazy, and I refuse to do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel.
Right. And like, the thing is, you could be empathetic to trans people. You could say, look, I know they're not a man or a woman. I get that they are transitioning. I'm not going to point that out at a dinner party. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to be respectful to the degree they respect me, etc. I don't have some chip on my shoulder where I'm going to be like, actually,
Yeah.
you're living a lie, and you know.
She has a penis.
Right. It's the same way, like, you could see a blonde woman walking down the street, and she's 40 years old, and she has, you know, platinum blonde hair, and you're like, excuse me, everyone, this woman's hair is not even her actual hair color. Like, she's using product here. Are we all clear? Like, this is not a blonde. She's a trans blonde. You know, so in the same way that you don't do that, but if asked about it, if someone said, wait, do you think her hair is actually naturally that color? You'd say no, that she is a fake blonde. And that's the same way. I'd say they are a trans woman or a trans man. They're fake man, fake woman. The same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess people just have issues when it's being sort of pushed on people. You know, when if you have the White House sort of saying, you know, we should be allowed to have, or we are going to make sure that trans women, if that's right, so men that became women, are going to compete with real women.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes a problem.
Well, it's funny because they're searching for issues here, and the landscape is dry. There's tumbleweeds rolling through because what are the issues? Bathrooms and sports? The sports thing should be wrapped up in a split second. No, you can't. No, you cannot compete as a woman when you're a natural born man. You can't do it. And it's like, for obvious reasons. And the fact that they would use that, they die on that hill and not understand the obvious ethical problems of what they're suggesting is stupid. It's crazy.
I don't know why they do it.
I mean, I would even take it even a step further and talk about chess. I'm a huge fan of chess. If you transition and compete against women as a man, men are better at chess. Now, it has nothing to do with strength, but it has something to do with the brain. And for whatever reason, men dominate women at chess, dominate. And it would equally be a little bit problematic if you had some man pretend to be a woman and then win titles as the best female chess player. And it has nothing to do with bone density or anything like that. That's a discussion that I've never heard, but it would be fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, it just feels like a lot of the people that are involved with the sort of woke religion, it's not that they want to die on that hill, but so they want to die on every single hill that's involved in any of their conversations.
And it's all the same dynamic, which is they are going to try to prove that they're superior to you. And so they have taken a position that they think is the righteous position. This is the idea, the stance that's on the right side of history. And you're the bad person. And so they've got to demonize you. This is what I call the Secretariat effect. So why is the horse Secretariat famous? Because he won a race. This horse won a race by like 20 lengths. You know, he smoked the competition. Does anyone know the time? Did he break time record on that race? I don't know. I don't think so. No, the only reason he's famous is because he was so far ahead of the second horse. So there's two ways to be great. You could be great. That takes a lot of work. Or you could just try to distance yourself from the next guy. And in so doing, that gap will make you appear great. This is why an average looking woman goes to the club or the pub with ugly chicks. Now she looks like Marilyn Monroe. It's not how hot she is, it's how hot is she in comparison to the people in her immediate surroundings. And so this is why you have people virtue signaling on Twitter and on their social media constantly. And they'll pick a target. They'll be like, this guy over here. Like, the Young Turks just did a video. I mean, it's the most petty, ridiculous thing ever. There's some viral video of a white guy calling a black person an N-word and a monkey. And so what do? They platform that hate. They platform the thing that they're saying, oh, this is terrible. And why do they do it? Because they're saying, I'm better than this guy who used the N-word. I don't use the N-word. That guy uses the N-word.
Yeah.
I mean, if I went over to my friends or my family and I said, hey, Dad, do you love me? Are you proud of me? He'd be like, sure, but why are you bringing this up? Well, because I didn't say the N-word today. He'd be like,
Yeah.
that's weird. Like, you think that's a great thing? You think you're some noble, great guy because you didn't say the N-word? Oh, okay, well, Dad, how about this? Let me reframe it. Here's a guy saying the N-word, and I think what he's doing is bad. That's terrible. He's a racist. I didn't say the N-word, Dad. He did. Now, do you love me, Daddy? That's basically what's going on.
That's just insane. I just sometimes feel like I'm losing my mind. You know, when I see Anna Kasparian looking at me in the eyes and going, whatever she says, I am better than you.
I know.
I'm much better than you.
She believes that to her soul, to her core.
She's a hate-filled, you know, she's heading towards the position of Jen Psaki, where she spent, you know, too long, you know, supporting her boss, didn't spend time on having a family, and she's just going to be even more angry then.
Yeah.
Can you imagine her at 45?
She's dark and twisted. There's a lot of fake laughter going on in her world. And I'm going to do a video on her soon. Actually, Jank just came out and white knighted her about this terrible blackmailing she did. It's even worse than blackmail. She followed through with this threat of falsely accusing Jimmy Dore of sexual misconduct or sexual harassment or Me Too, all that crap. And yeah, she's really a garbage person. And it's so obvious and it's so joyful to watch someone just fight a losing battle. So you know the person's shit, and they're trying to say in every breath that they take publicly, they're trying to promote how great they are. And that difference it's the basis of comedy. Like, what is comedy? At its core, comedy is watching someone try to do something and failing. Like, that's you know it's not going to go well, but you watch it anyway, and you can soak in the pleasure of watching someone up against the odds. You know, try to overcome something that is impossible to conquer, and that is Anna proving that she's a good person when you know she's not.
Yeah, I mean, and that brings me on to something I was going to talk to you about as well. Do you probably remember when the Young Turks were viewed as reasonable left-wing online media? Because they were kind of the first big alternative news in inverted commas channel, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, and all that is it's like the Atheism Plus people. When you first met them, all you knew about them was they're atheists. When you first met the Young Turks, most people, all they knew about them was they're on the left. So if you are against people on the right, you know, you're against the religious right, the political figures, whatever, you loosely hear about somebody on the left and they're shitting on whoever, you know, Bush or Trump or the war. And you go, oh, okay, well, they're on my side. But then comes, you know, the plot twist, which is actually they're not on my side at all. And I don't care if we both loosely share, you know, 20, 30, 40 different positions. There's another 100 positions we don't share. And a lot of people don't have the time or patience to actually dig into those details and care enough. A lot of people are very, low information. They're busy. They don't have time. But do your research and understand that these people are awful human beings, and you have every reason to make them your enemies. They should be. They are your enemies. You either know it or you don't.
And a lot of the things that you do agree on them with are so freaking obvious anyway
Right.
that there's no point in even thinking about those, because yes, we both agree that oxygen is needed. Right?
Yes, exactly. And
Like,
I don't care about disagreement. And that's the other thing. Like, there are people, we were talking earlier about Hitchens and Douglas Murray, and I disagree with those guys on a couple things. And
mhm,
who cares though? Like,
mhm,
it's
yeah,
a weird expectation that you're supposed to agree with everyone on everything.
yeah,
Or if I'm going to support a guy, either financially or just say, hey, I like this guy, then I have to agree with him on everything. No. What's more important than your stance on an issue, you can have an honest disagreement about whatever, is
yeah,
your character is a different topic than your positions on things. So when we're talking Anna Kasparian, the Young Turks, all these people, what is truly repugnant about them is their character flaws. I mean, I disagree with them, and I know they're awful people when it comes to their character. So
mhm,
this is why, by the way, hypocrisy is this thing separate from everything else. So if someone says, like, I'm against doxing people, and I hate anyone who doxes, okay, that's fine. But then when I find out that that same person doxes people or gives a pass to people who get doxed who he hates, then that says something about his character. It has nothing to do with, like, here's what I think about Netanyahu, or here's what I think about the tax code, or no, that's fair disagreement. This is character flaw, and it's reprehensible, and it should be called out and separated as such. What most people do is they conflate. They say, if you're against my team, then I'm gonna, like, ignore all your character flaws and your despicable behavior, and that to me is just, it's totally unacceptable.
100%, 100%. I think that's the most important thing, is that we're seeing more and more the people to the fringes of both sides. But do you know what? I'll just say it. That I actually think more than half at the moment are the people on the left. But definitely the fringes on both sides are just that they're just completely happy to ignore bad things, like if it benefits them.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Um,
And this is how they ignore stories. They just
oh, it's crazy,
entirely. Yeah.
crazy. Have you ever been doxxed?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I look back at my time online, and I think, should I have ever said my name? Like, if I analyze that, what is what are the advantages of saying my name at
Mm,
all versus the disadvantages? That's a tricky one. Like, I really can barely think of any advantages aside from the fact that if you want to ask someone to give you money to your PayPal, you kind of have to have a name, or you could, I guess you could set up a business. You don't even have to do that, but eventually someone could find your name. It often does happen. Your location is something different and a bit more private. But yeah, I've been doxxed, and whenever you get enemies, it's sort of all's fair in love and war and YouTube drama, and people,
yeah.
they just reveal themselves. They're hiding behind anonymity. They're weak, and they do whatever they can to harm you. Like, my parents got swatted. The cops showed up. They thought there was a bomb threat because I was against Trump during the election, and they thought, oh, here's something cool. Let's, like, put this dude's parents, put their lives in danger. And it's just like, it's really sickening. But
This
that's,
time round or the first time round, like
no, the
2016 or
the first time around for sure.
Jesus.
Yeah. And the more time you spend online, the more you are given access to seeing people for who they are. And
Mm,
anonymity is a big part of that, but also just the breadth of humanity that you are able to see. And so
mhm.
we tend to get outraged over the extremities of that, and rightfully so. But you got to take it all with a grain of salt. You have to kind of look at it in perspective. I mean, half of the outrageous people you see online, they don't live near you. You don't know them. You don't associate with them. But
Yeah.
what were you expecting? There's 7 billion people on the planet. You don't think we're going to
Yeah.
find some entertaining freak shows to point at and gawk at? Um, it might not be the best use of time, but it is entertaining.
Yeah. Who would win in a fight between you and TJ?
Winston stopped writing, partly because he was suffering from cramp. He did not know what had made him pour out this stream of rubbish